Good afternoon and welcome to Wildfire Awareness 2015, and thank you for being here today. My name is Greg McFadden, and I'm the Fire Chief for CAL FIRE Butte Unit and the Butte County Fire Chief along with Town of Paradise, the City of Greeley, and Biggs. Before I introduce our first speaker, I'd like to acknowledge some of our local team cooperators that are in attendance today. Butte County Sheriff Corey Honea, CHP Sergeant Sanderson from Oroville, and Officer Sadowski from Chico, Butte County Office of Emergency Management John Gosarian, U.S. Feather River District Division Chief Steve Murphy, Cal OES Assistant Chief Region 3 Ken Hood, National Guard Master Chris Renner, DWR Pat Woodlock, and State Park Zachary Hawkins. A local fire agencies that are in presence today, we have Oroville City representation, Emmerdale Fire District, and the 3 rancherias are also represented today. Members of Butte County Fire Safe Council and Yankee Fire Safe Council, PG&E Neil Fisher, SPI Steve Roberts, and staff members from Assemblyman Gallagher's office. It takes a team of dedicated cooperators to manage a dynamic incident like a wildland fire, from initial attack to evacuation orders, information sharing, logistical support, infrastructure assessment to mitigation of the incident. And I'm proud to say that this team and many more members function at the very high level when the time calls. Statewide, and here in Butte County, we're experiencing the results of 4 years of drought. Lake Oroville is at 50% of its capacity. Local wells are running dry, and the fire activity in Butte County has increased by 85% over the last 2 years. CAL FIRE and Butte County Fire have been preparing for the potential of historically damaging and devastating fire season by providing residents with home inspections, encouraging 100-foot inspection of defensible space around their home, working with local fire safe council with vegetation management projects, and encourage the public to register with the mass notification process through the local sheriff department's webpage to have their email, cell phone, or home phone number available, and training our firefighters. Since April 6th, we have hired 59 additional firefighters and are staffing 10 state engines in CAL FIRE in Butte Unit. On May 11th, the Chico Air Tech base will also be staffed, and by mid-June, 30 additional firefighters will be hired and staffing 5 additional engines. Along with the CAL FIRE resources and the personnel, our Butte County and Paradise Fire Departments will provide additional 14 engine companies, and a dedicated group of 180 volunteer firefighters will assist. We also are very excited about the addition to the Butte County Fire Department's ability for early intelligence gathering through the use of remote camera technology in the eastern foothills of Butte County. Through a cooperative agreement between PG&E, the Yankee Hill Fire Safe Council, and Butte County Fire Department, this technology provides 24/7, 365, 360-degree detection coverage for the foothills in the community of Butte County, and provide chief officers with early information about fires, enabling them to make early strategic decisions. It is now my honor to introduce our first presenter, Chief Kim Pinlot, CAL FIRE Director.
Thank you, Chief McFadden, and thank you everyone for spending the afternoon here out in the hot asphalt to talk about wildfire in California and preparedness. As Chief McFadden talked about, it's no accident that all of these cooperators at all levels of government, private sector, utilities, and many other stakeholders in our business are engaged and working together. It's the only way it works in California to combat the wildfire challenges across the state. Chief McFadden talked about it. We're in the 4th year of, quite frankly, a mega drought, unprecedented conditions we're seeing across the state. Wildfire is just one of many impacts that the drought is having on the landscape and the residents of California. We're taking this week, as we do every year at this time, to crisscross California and have press conferences and events just like this to get the message out about how we're preparing. Governor Brown, for a 2nd year in a row, has provided CAL FIRE with a significant augmentation and increase in resources to combat the conditions that we're facing. Chief McFadden talked about the additional resources and staffing going on here in CAL FIRE Butte Unit and Butte County Fire. Magnify that across the state to look at preparations that we're doing. We have been bringing firefighters on 6 to 8 weeks early across the state. Air attack, aircraft, helicopters have all been coming online earlier. We have additional firefighters across our fire stations and fire engines throughout the state. We have 2 additional large air tankers that we're contracting with here within the next several weeks to provide additional capacity for CAL FIRE's aviation program. To date, fire activity is well above average. Over the last 4 months, we have had over 1,100 wildfires across California. That's almost twice as many as we would normally have for this time of year. But I think we all saw the conditions last year and what happens when those fires escape initial attack. We have fires like the King Fire in El Dorado County that burned almost 100,000 acres. Our goal is to prevent those fires and certainly keep them at 95 or keep them at least 10 acres or less when they do start, so that we don't have large and damaging fires across the state. On top of the conditions that we were already facing, this year is exacerbated by insect and disease mortality across the conifers and native vegetation across California. We are seeing thousands of acres of trees and brush die because they are drought stressed and are succumbing to insect and pest mortality. This is only adding additional flammable, critical fuel to the fire across the state. And again, those are the things that we are, as fire agencies and cooperators, preparing for again this year. Well, we've done a lot to do our part. Again, all of these folks behind me are working together. Now the challenge is we need the public to do their part. You're going to hear a lot about our public education message across the state about Ready for Wildfire, Ready, Set, Go, and One Less Spark. Those are the messages we're asking everybody to engage in and take home every day. 95% of wildland fires are started by people. That means that 95% of the fires can be prevented. And that's going to be, in addition to our wildfire response, our public education message is going to be a very strong focus this year. So think Ready, Set, Go. Ready means preparing your home ahead of the fire, doing the defensible space that you heard Chief McFadden and you'll hear others talk about. It's that clearance and maintenance of vegetation out to 100 feet from around your home and structure. Now, for years, we have talked about maintaining a green lawn, non-flammable, a good way to protect your home. Well, obviously, just looking behind us, the state doesn't have water. We are not going to be watering our lawns. We can't water our lawns and maintain that green belt anymore. So when we stop watering the lawns, we also need to make sure that we're removing the dead vegetation so that it doesn't become part of the fire hazard. So again, it's the Ready. It's doing all of those things. It's address marking. It's ensuring that firefighters can find your home when they're responding. Then it's Set. That means have your evacuation plan in place. Identify all of those things that you're going to take with you before the emergency occurs so that you're not thinking about that at the time of the emergency. Have your evacuation plan in place. Identify at least 2 exit routes from your community so that you have options to leave when the fire is occurring. And lastly, it's the Go part of Ready, Set, Go, and it's just that. You need to leave, and you need to leave early. Don't necessarily wait for law enforcement or firefighters to say it's time to go. When there's a fire in your community, please leave safely and orderly so that firefighters and law enforcement can come in and help protect your home and your community. At the end of the day, we need every citizen to engage and step up to the plate, just as all of these folks behind us are doing, to help protect you and help protect the resources of California. Next up, I'd like to introduce Chief Shauna Lagarza. She is the Deputy Fire and Aviation Chief for Region 5 of the U.S. Forest Service.
Thank you, Chief Pamlott. Again, I'm Shauna Lagarza, Director of Fire and Aviation Management here for Forest Service in California. Big thank you to CAL FIRE for having the Forest Service be a part of Wildfire Awareness Week. Thank you to the firefighters I see out here today, a part of all agencies for your work that you do as firefighters. Thank your families for allowing you to be firefighters who work in the public service, emergency services. It's not an easy job, and so we're very appreciative of the work you do and just being here today. The U.S. Forest Service is fully prepared for this fire season, as we do for every fire season. We did bring on early activation of air tankers and some helicopters to help not just the Forest Service, but all the agencies you see here behind me. We are looking at doing some increased fire restrictions in different forests across the region, and that's earlier than normal, as we know we're in the 4-year drought. In addition to some of the preparation, we are dusting off the ideas of dry mopping, in knowing that water is very scarce, and so if there's areas inside of fires after you have your outside of the edge secured so it doesn't spread, to do more dry mopping and conserve water on areas where you may not need to use water to mop up, so we have more water for initial attack. We have rolled out our prevention education campaign. People will be traveling the state of California in cooperation with the agencies behind me, talking about the One Less Spark, One Less Wildfire. Things in that campaign are, if you're coming to a lake and you're bringing your boat, make sure you check your tow chain so it's not dragging along the highway as you go there, starting fires. If you do get to a forest where you can have a campfire and you have a campfire, we need your help. Make sure you put it out all the way before you leave. We need your help from the public on that. As Chief Pamela said, 95% of the fires in California are human caused. We need help from the public. The last thing I talk about is partnerships and the cohesive strategy. Cohesive strategy is all hands, all lands, which includes wildland fire response, fire-adapted communities, and resilient landscapes. In order to implement and be a part of the cohesive strategy, which we've been doing a long time in California, I believe it's 3 C's. It's communication, cooperation, collaboration. Communication, cooperation, collaboration. If we practice those 3 C's all the time with all of our agencies, we'll have the best safe fire season that we can. Thank you very much for your time. And with that, I'd like to introduce Chief Kim Zagaris with Cal OES.
Well, good afternoon, and on behalf of the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'd like to extend my thanks to Chief Pimlott and his entire staff. Every year they continue to do a great job promoting Wildfire Awareness Week throughout the state, and another good year for making sure the message gets out. At the Office of Emergency Services, our big role is actually to coordinate the state's response to emergencies, and I'll emphasize, which already has been emphasized already, is that we cannot do it without our local, state, federal, and tribal partners that represent all those fashions behind me. And I think that together we provide a great team response to emergencies in the state. The State Fire and Rescue Mutual Aid system that I manage each and every day with our local, state, and federal partners is probably the best model system anywhere in the nation, if not in the world. But it is being tested on a yearly basis. Fire season does not just end anymore. It is year-round here in California. And so while we see a little bit of a lull, it hasn't gone away, and it's been with us. The first responders, our firefighters, and other public safety officials have been actively training and honing up those skills in addition to what they had last year in preparation for this year. And we do need the public support to be fire safe, as you've already heard. They can make the difference for the folks behind us and for our state as a whole. So with that, we ask everyone to keep these individuals and their families in their thoughts and their prayers, and hope for a safe summer for California. Thank you, and I'd like to now introduce Chief Keith Larkin, the Northern Region Chief for CAL FIRE.
Good afternoon. I'm Keith Larkin, the Northern Region Chief for CAL FIRE. And I just want to talk a little bit about the situation in the northern end of our state, basically from Sacramento to the Oregon border, and kind of give you a little bit of history over what happened last year. And last year we had almost 2,000 wildland fires, and 1,400 of those roughly were human caused. I think that tells us one thing about our ability to prevent fires, and that we should be starting with ourselves and policing what we do out there every day. The other thing about us for the north is that we have, CAL FIRE has 6 incident management teams that are ready to deploy anywhere in the state. Last year we deployed those teams 15 times, and 10 of those deployments were in the north end of the state. So they're deployed to those larger and more complex type incidents, and that again gives you an indication of the complexity and the size of the fires that we dealt with last year. So talking about this year now, we're in the 4th year of drought, as everyone has said. Last year was our 3rd year. What's different about this year? Well, mainly the conditions, again, are duplicating themselves. We're looking at, very, very dry conditions. The thing that's probably changed a little bit is that we're seeing much more grass this year than we saw last year, which is going to give us or give the opportunity for fire starts to increase quite a bit. And then you have the fuels that will carry the fire into the larger fuels like the brush and timber, which are extremely dry from the drought conditions already. So the conditions are getting worse in that respect for the smaller fuels carrying it to the larger. The other one, of course, is the lack of snow. The snowpack basically being non-existent this year has left our higher elevations extremely exposed, and so all the fuels and the materials at the upper elevations have gotten extremely dry. And even as early as February, we had a fire in an elevation about just over 5,000 feet that burned 200 acres of timber. And in a normal year, that area would have been under snow. So it wouldn't have even been a fire concern for us. The other one, of course, is with the less water available out there, we're going to have to go further for our water supplies. Oftentimes our helicopters are able to make water drops and dip out of those various ponds. Those ponds are dry, so we're going to have to go further to get that water, and their response and their return to support the firefighters on the ground is going to be delayed. As was mentioned earlier, we're staffing up early, and we're moving forward, watching these conditions and really trying to stay in front of the conditions as they develop. This year, for the first time in I don't know how long it's been, we had 25 engines in the northern region that were staffed the entire winter, and there was another roughly 45 in the south that were staffed all winter. And those are things that we have not done. Also, we're staffing up early. We started staffing our engines, increasing that 25 number in the end of March. And right now we sit at 130 engines in the northern region, which in a typical year, that would be much, much less. So we're really getting out, and we're trying our best to stay in front of it. And the other thing we're trying to do, and we're going to keep working at, I think we'll be able to accomplish, is we're going to get everybody on board and ready to roll on the 1st of June, so that as these conditions continue, again, we'll be ready to deal with them. The other part of what we're doing, and we'll continue to be doing it over the next couple of months, is getting out and doing our LE 100 inspections. And we're going to be out in the areas inspecting homes and trying to make sure that the clearances are proper and your homes are safe. And we've already accomplished 22,000 of those inspections in the north end of the region. And over the next 2 months, I expect those numbers are going to go up quite a bit. So at this point, I just wanted to remind everyone that this is, we're in conditions right now that warrant everyone to be extremely cautious, and that we need to get the clearances done and to follow the Ready, Set, Go guidelines. So at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to the director of our department and Chief Ken Pemlott.
So thank you, Chief Larkin. And I just, again, want to reiterate that of all of the partners behind us, the folks you see here are not just firefighting agencies. Our law enforcement partners with the Highway Patrol, Butte County Sheriff's Department, and many other law enforcement agencies. Longstanding partner, the California National Guard, who we rely on every year for integrated work in aviation and hand crew work. Fire safe councils, utilities, tribal communities, many others are working with us to combat, again, the conditions that we face. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and open it